But this has been quite a nice little job actually. It's been good to get back on the spanners. Well, that's the result. And forwards. Had a catastrophic failure. This is a Stiga ride-on lawnmower, and it's got the Tuff Torq k574b. Stiga also list it as a Kanzaki on their parts list, but basically what's happened is I was doing something I shouldn't have been, but if you can see that, that's the good material, and that's where it was cracked. I was tying a chipper with it just over in the woods there, and I don't know if I went down a hole or this snapped, but this went down, rolled the chipper, and then when I went to pull away I only had one wheel drive. So yeah, so we're replacing the axle today. I managed to get one for 60 quid because the first one I found was 600, so this was nearly in the bin, this thing. But we're going to take the axle out. It's a 4-wheel drive, so there's a couple of extra hoses that you have to disconnect, some linkages. We'll get the axle out and then we'll replace the shaft, hopefully. Right, I've taken that off. You don't have to, but if I don't, when we get under here you won't actually see anything. So the setup is I've got it jacked up and I've got this plastic down for when we drop stuff, because we're going to, at least you stand a fighting chance of finding it then. Got some magnetic trays to put all the clips in. Some of the clips I'm guessing aren't going to make it. There's nothing we can do about that. There's just a few things we need to undo before we get this axle out. There's the brake here. Hopefully you can see any of this. So I'm just going to undo that 10mm nut and pull it out so I don't have to worry about the adjustment. Spring there. There's a pipe for this reservoir. That'll be one of the last things we do. 2 30mm mounts there. I'm going to slacken this fan off. I'm going to slacken this belt off, take this fan off, get it out of the way because that's going to be easy to break. And then on this side we've got this selector here which basically selects neutral. So we'll need that when we're bleeding it, and then it's just this accelerator on, which is the forward and reverse. And then on that side, or underneath rather, we've got these two pipes. These are for the pump. I think they power the front wheels. And then after that, we'll get these bolts out, or loosened, drain the oil, and then this thing should fall on the floor. But we'll see. Remember to put that back on. That's the brake. And it just goes around there like that. Okay. I'll tuck them both up there. Right, we've got to get this off. And what there is a bent bit of wire, like a clip. It's bent all the way around here, and then it goes through a hole and out the back, and it basically locks this knuckle in. So what we've got to do is get on the bottom and try and flick it over. There you go, see it? Get some pliers. And then just like that. Don't lose that, it could be bad. And then this might be a little bit stiff. That's out of the way. Now we've got to move on to this clip. Yeah, I cracked it. Have to get a new one of them. Where is it? That is, see that? Oh well. This can come out. this out of the way. Right, with the machine in park, it slackens off this belt, and what I've done is I've undone this 17mm nut. It's a normal thread, normal direction, righty tighty, lefty loosey, and then I should better drop that down and get this belt out of the way. I'm going to take that fan off when the axle's on the floor. It's easier to get to the circlip that's holding it on. Right, I've got this pulley out. You have to put the handbrake on in order to get the socket up to get the bolt out, the nut off rather. But then to get this bolt out, it hits on a metal plate, so you have to take the handbrake off to get this bolt out. But then to get the pulley out, you can wiggle it out, which is fine. But to get the belt off, you then have to put the handbrake back on because it's now being trapped by the bracket that this was on. So it's a bit of a on-off, but it's doable. The last thing is this little bracket here, two 30mm bolts. One goes through the case of the axle and one goes through the frame. So you should better just get them undone, and then it's these two pipes, or drain the oil, these two pipes, and then the fill pipe, and then it's two 30mm either side, and this thing should be about ready to drop out. I'm going to drain the oil out. My plan is this: I'm going to undo the filter, dump it out of there. I'm going to get these two pipes off, and then to try and prevent loads and loads of air getting sucked into these, I'm just going to stretch a couple of rubber gloves over it, cable tie it, and hopefully that'll stop it from leaking. See, we've got a couple of clips here. Should be able to just get one of these off, but these are, there's a special tool for these which I haven't got, but you can normally do it with a screwdriver and a pair of pliers. They just sort of latch over and hook. So the idea is you take some of the tension off it and get a small bladed screwdriver in there and pop it off. So I've got the oil out, rubber gloves on the pipes, rubber gloves on the unions that are still on the gearbox so it doesn't drip when I lift this up. Most of the oil is out. I've taken the filter out, put that in a rubber glove as well because I'm going to reuse that, but there's still some oil in there because obviously the back's jacked up. So I put the cover back on so when I get this out it doesn't puke its guts everywhere. Now I'm saving the oil because I'm going to reuse it. Then there's two reasons for that. It might seem a bit tight, but there's literally 10 hours on this, probably less than that, since I did a gearbox oil change on that, and it was £36 for 4 litres. Now it's between 95, and there's one guy trying to sell it for £115 for 4 litres of oil, which is ridiculous. So I'm not going to play that game. So this is March 2025, so if you know who you are, you're greedy, you know who you are. But yeah, so I'm reusing the old oil because it's as good as new. I've filtered it, put it back in the remainder of what was left, so it's kind of diluted the old stuff a bit anyway. But however, I'm going to lift this out, and then hopefully the next bit will be, we'll find somewhere on the bench, nice and clean. You don't want to be doing this outside. And get this clip off. I can only get this down so far before I can get in and get this clip off. Try the top one. There's normally a pair of pliers. They've got like two little jaws and they sit either side. There's a little bulbous bit on here sometimes. This is going to get shaky, but that gearbox wants to fall over as well once this clips out. Might be the only thing keeping it steady. So I'm going to try and keep it steady with my hands while I'm doing this clip at the same time. Oh, it's fun. There you go, see that? Though there's a nut there, it's not actually a conventional nut. This thing's actually held on by this little circlip. So you've got to be gentle because these do like to ping. So always keep your finger over it. Have a flat bladed screwdriver handy. Get around the back. I've got my thumb over it. I know you're not really seeing much, but I'm just, if that pings up, it's got to get through my hand to get anywhere. Okay, like that. And we need to keep that in a magnetic tray, and this nut just actually lifts off. So I'm going to put them in a tray. I'm going to put them in order. So it goes clip, nut, and then washer. Then the fan comes off. Put that over there, and then I know there's this little washer thing here, which comes off. And then this is the new pulley which I did last year. So that comes off. And then I don't need to take that off, but we need to know it exists. So that shouldn't come off. I'll have to check that that's still on. I might regret that. Actually, should we just take it off? Yeah, it's not exactly on there. I don't want to drop that and then. Right. So that's that lot. So now we're ready to. Oh, I took the smaller pipe off rather than this one. Might be an opportunity to show you how to go back on if I can do it. Right, it's been a while, but I like to try and put it back in. These normally form like an indentation in the rubber, so give yourself as much advantage as you can. Sometimes this is what the normal tool looks like. You got to push it that way. Keep this on because it's slippery. And there we go, just like that. All right, I've got this on some blocks. What I did do is I numbered these. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 2, that's 1, just in case there's a difference. You'd think they'd be the same, but you never know. We need to take these out first. And there's a rubber seal on here, so we want to be careful with that. Gunk around there, we'll have to clean that up before it goes back in. So that's number 1, that's furthest away from us. And number 2. Right, okay. It's a fight you want, is it? I've got this supported both sides and one at the back, just in case I had to do something like that. So don't rest it on any of the levers or anything. And obviously we've already taken the fan off, because that could be bad. There we go. So there's a couple of rubber seals around there. Number 1, number 2. These shouldn't be tight, just crack them off by hand and then we can gun the rest off. They're all the same size. And then there's see that? I don't think we're going to get them wrong. You try ramming that in that short hole. Right, now I've got to pry this off. We've got some lugs. There's a couple all about the place, points where we can get a pry bar underneath. The trick I'm guessing with this is obviously this is alley. You don't want to be snapping that, so I'm going to try and locate it all in one side and see if I can't shift it. There we go. That actually comes away quite easily. I've done a lot worse. Nice. Put in there. Now, this is where it could go horribly wrong. Ah, there we have it. Looks pretty good in there. Now, dust is our enemy. So we've got to keep this clean. So I'm just going to cover that for now. And then when we clean the silicone off, we'll brake cleaner it off. So that's our broken shaft. And that's where it's held in there. There's a magnet here which you need to clean up. Right, I'll give that a bit of a better clean with some brake cleaner in a minute. Leave that there where we can see it. Right, now we've got to get this. There's like a clip here that's got to lift up, so you're going to want a magnet. And a clean bit of paper, because we don't want any muck getting in here. Ideally, this would be a spotlessly clean workshop, but it's all we've got. Right, I'm going to put that here. And where's my little... lift that up. It's just like a fork. Holds it in. There's some muck on there. I'll clean that off. Now, we should be able to make sure we've got clean hands. In here is a circlip, so we want to rotate it so it's pointing upwards. There's a flat on it, and then get our magnet in there. Where are we? If you use a magnet, it's a lot easier than trying to get a pair of pliers, because oil covered metal isn't very cooperative. So put that in there like that and pop that out. And that's what holds the shaft in. Now what we should be able to do is gently pull this out. Right, that's our broken bit. That there. Here's one I made earlier. Now, get some oil on this. Put some oil on that seal. I'm not changing the seal, but if I do need to do it, I can do that just by taking the wheel off. There's a bit of oil laying in there anyway. Now, before we put that in, just make sure the ends are doesn't yeah. If we're very gentle, don't do any extreme manoeuvres. Should be able to get that in there. Clean everything. That's it popping in like that. Get your finger over it, push that in. That shouldn't go anywhere now. And this is coming out, or going back in the same way it came out. That just sits in there like that. It all feels very inadequate, but that is that. Right, now we can start cleaning all this gasket up. There we go. Right, we'll do some brake cleaner on this now. Got the worst of it off. We'll hit it with some brake cleaner, try and get every last bit we can off, and I'll just do the same on the cover, and then we put this back together. So that's all clean, brake cleaned off, got as much of the silicone as I can off, Same with the cover. Get it as clean as you can, get rid of any little bits of silicone. Brake cleaner is quite good because if it's very thin, you can see it almost ripple and it'll come off quite easy. So now I'm going to put silicone around all these channels, see where these little grooves are, make sure you clean all them out. And then everywhere there's a flat surface, we're going to put a bead of silicone on it. We're going to put a bead on, we're not going to get in there with our fingers. That's not the way we do it. Just put a nice bead on. You don't need to start smearing it around, and then when it clamps down it'll just fill in all the gaps. Just check everything's as it should be. Then there's a little square part of this shaft here that sits on the case, so you've got to make sure that's still flat, otherwise when you try and clamp this down, if that's turned it'll just be trying to dig into this. So magnets in, shafts in, that all looks good. Try not to wiggle this about too much. Right, I think that's about as much as we can do. That's clean. I think that looks alright, so make sure there's nothing been dropped in there. All looks pretty good. Right, now this should just go down flush. Shouldn't have to do any wiggling. There we go, like that. Lovely, right. I'll just stick the bolts in. There's a Torq setting for this. I'll go and get that while this is curing, but I'm just going to nip these down by hand. We are 20 to 24 Newton meters, so 22. I'll give that. Right, there we go. Right, I'm going to let that sit now. I'll put this back tomorrow. I'm in no hurry. Let this silicone go off. Put the oil filter back in so I don't forget, and I put these two 19mm pipe adapters in, just clean them up, bit of oil around the seals, put them back in. There's no oil in this yet obviously, but I just did it so I don't forget tomorrow. Back on this, I've got the old hub off, the broken shaft, just undo these two and knock it out. There's a cap, there's a washer, and then there's a big clip. But don't forget this woodruff key. And that slots on quite nicely. Now what I did is I don't know if this is necessary or not, but I measured how far mine was from the face of this to the, there's a chamfer on here, and mine was 15mm, so I'm just going to set it there and then we can part as friends. I've got to try and find a Torq setting for this. Whether I'll be able to or not, I don't know, but for now it wasn't that tight coming off. So we'll just, I don't want it falling off, because that could be a bad thing, but it shouldn't, because like I say, it's a circlip. And then this just goes on there, and then this big clip went on like that. Some pliers. Here's my grips. These have seen better days. There's no teeth on them now. They don't grip anything. That's that. And then, where is it? It's a T25. This holds this cap on. Right, get the fan back on. So there's this clip that came off. Let's see what I'm doing. It's just in there, is it? It's just in there. And there's the pulley. I can't remember which way around this went. Get it like that. I'll have to check that. I think that goes on there like that. And then the fan. And the washer. And the nut. And this clip. When you put these on, try and get the pins right in so it's got better grip, and then always have your finger over it so when it does ping off you stand a chance of finding it. Bit of muck around here, but that's it. Just give it a twist, make sure it's sitting in there nicely, and they should go back together. So that's that. Right, get this off, and then I'll manhandle the thing back in. Right, gotta slope that up there like that. What I'm going to try and do before I bolt this on is just flip the belt on, because it was a little bit of a nuisance to get on and off, but with the axle floating around it might be easier. So I've got to try and get this up here. Right. Get off here. Right, they're in. I can take the jack out now. None of these are tight, so I've still got some adjustment to move it around, but get this jack out of the way now and see what we're doing. Right, done with that. Okay, let's go put these pipes back on. Click, click. That's it. I'm going to get that belt on now before I get too carried away. I've got the belt back on, the pulleys back on. It's a bit of a fiddle, but that side's all buttoned up more or less. I haven't done up the actual retainers yet. But this is the, I think it's the neutral selector. This is the bit that I broke this clip on. Wobbly camera. I broke this clip on. I've got a new one coming, so I can't put that back on yet. But what we can do is just put it in place, and then we've got to get this knuckle back on. Should be able to just pop it on with your finger, and then we've got to slot this clip back in. That goes in there, and then just push it round. So literally all that does is just puts a bar across there, so it closes the hole up, so this can't come off now. They do tend to ping off. I'm going to do these bolts up, put that last bracket on, and I believe that's everything other than replacing this clip here. Once I've done that, I can then bleed it out. But the good thing about me using the old oil is I measured on the bottle that I put it back into. I measured the level, so now I can just dump all that back in, and that's a good start point. We have lost a bit, so we'll be adding some, but it's a lot easier than trying to guess how much this needs. So I can just drop that back in, and then when that clip gets here, we'll do the bleeding process, and that should finish this one up then, hopefully. Just as a last little thing, where there's oil, obviously it drips out of there when you're doing these things up, same with the oil filter. I'm just going to brake cleaner it off. Same with the pipe, the filler pipe over there. I'll get around the other side and do that. And then when that's bone dry, if there is any weeping, we'll know there's a problem rather than thinking, is it just residual oil that was left? I'll clean the other side up the same. Then I'm going to drop the oil in it, and then I'll bring you back when I've got this clip on and we can bleed it out. So look, when we get down to that line, that's all that was in it, bizarrely enough. And I filtered the old stuff before I put it back in here. There's no metal or anything in there, it's just organics, stuff that blows around, and I'll do the same going back in. But this has been quite a nice little job actually. It's been good to get back on the spanners. As long as this works out alright when I start it up and drive it backwards and forwards. Right, we're going to bleed this out now and then call this done. On this machine we've got these bypass levers. There's one at the front, there's one at the back. We have to pull this out and we have to pull this one out. But as soon as we start it up, that one's going to go back in. So we start it up, pull that out, and then we've got a block of wood which we basically wedge underneath the throttle pedal, and then that's going to drive it forward. Obviously it's bypass the axles, so it's not going to go anywhere, and then we can just keep filling up the tank. We've got to let it run for a minute, and then we reverse. We'll take the big one out and put the smaller one under the front and do the same thing in reverse, and we just keep going until that level stays where we want it to be. I can't hold the camera and do that at the same time, but that's basically what I'm going to do. That's already out. I've got to check that one, pull that one back out, and then we'll block it and start filling it up. And we've got to be fairly sharpish about it because we don't want that to drain down, so I'm going to stuff as much in there as I can, because I know I've still got some more from what I took out. So that's topped up. It's still not down to my line, so I've still got some more to get where we started. So that should be all right. So I'm going to start it up, pull them levers, and then block it up, and you should see that start going down. This might get a bit wobbly because obviously that tripod's on the plastic, but let's see how we get on. All right, back levers out, front levers out. The bubble. See loads of air coming out of this now. Feel the bubbles. I'm going to swap it to reverse. Oh, that dropped down quite a lot. I don't know if you can see how clean that oil is, that's why I didn't want to dump it. Right, I'm just going to carry on doing that now. Basically, I'm going to run it for a minute in forward, run it in reverse until we get to a point where the level's not dropping anymore. Then we know all the air's out of it, and also we can see inside, make sure there's no bubbles coming out. And then just road test it, make sure it drives forwards and backwards, which it should. And at least the wheel can be bolted on now, so we're winning, because that wasn't there when we started, was it? It all rotates freely. That's nice. So yeah, nice little job that. Hopefully it's helped you out if you've got one of these. It's not as bad as it may first seem. So if you like this sort of thing, if you can give it a like, it helps other people find it, it might be useful for them. If you could subscribe, it helps me grow the channel. Check out my other stuff. I'll see you on the next one.